just so that you're aware. We're on air. So hello to everyone who's here, and more people will be joining us as we go. But I'm very happy to welcome Simon and I to our Forum TV schedule. And Simon and I met about probably 4 or 5 years ago, I think,
Yes.
through Sophie Clark Jervis, who's an old friend of my husband, Simon Jackers, who would set up a production company with Simon, and we were hoping to work together on an adaptation of the Mitford Murders, which hasn't quite yet come to pass. But
Always a chance.
You never know. You never know, you see. So we worked together on that. And I was really thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Simon. Simon had done a lot in the past, from Men Behaving Badly to the Durrells, more recently Finding Alice with Keeley Hawes. So she's a bit of a sort of a muse for you, maybe, is she? Really?
Well, to be cynical, which I try not to be, she is a way to get a show on television.
Yeah.
She's a very, she's brilliant, and she's a feature of British television. And I'm surprised she hasn't made the trip to America, actually, and more globally. But no, she's very good. So yeah, it's nice to work with her.
Well, she's got kids and things. I did read about that. I think that is the challenge for actresses. You have to move your whole family over. But you've done that. You went over to LA. You've done a few stints in LA with the family.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, it's good to have, especially when they're younger. I mean, it's got harder now to take your children out of school, but I think we were just about the age where the kids were old enough, and head teachers said, "Oh, go on then, go and have a good time, go and soak up some sun." So yeah, we had 3 winters always winter in LA, because the winter is obviously equivalent to our summer. So yeah, I mean, it's, I didn't want to move there forever, but I do think it's good for one's TV writing education to give it a go, and I did actually walk away from that. I was working on an animation film, and I wasn't used to that kind of level of repetition, frankly.
What do you mean, level of repetition?
Flushed away. So I felt, after a while, after rewriting the scene 10 times, I thought, I will go mad if I stay here. So we all traipsed home.
So you all came back. So you're right. So you're talking to us, you said, from your house, Belsize Park, just before we came on. We said in London, in the basement.
Basement, writers should be in basements or in attics. Obviously, we're not allowed in the middle of the house.
Yes, well out of sight, in other words.
Yes.
And is this the room you work in?
It is, but I presume, like a lot of writers, I spend a lot of time in cafes, and obviously that's why it's been quite a traumatic year in many ways. Not being able to sit in cafes, and then more recently, you can decide to be very cold and working outside in a cafe. But we've been allowed back in recently, so it's been just as the weather improves. So yeah, and I think that's probably the classic way is obviously to write facing a blank wall and avoid distractions. But that's the hair shirt approach to living, and I would rather be distracted by people ordering exotic brands of coffee and do the writing, and so I like a little bit of distraction, but I think it's
that's a kind of white noise, that sort of distraction.
It doesn't mean much, does it? Unless somebody does something really weird and interesting at another table, you are or talks very loudly, but that's the beauty of
but I have to say, I found that I used to work in cafes a lot when I was younger, not so much recently, but do it a little bit. But when I went to London the other day, and I went and got my nails done, and there was a woman in the chair next to me kind of talking very loudly about how she was building, and it, quite sort of unpleasant. I thought, but I've really missed this.
Well, that's a good positive.
Someone else, a different voice, something that you could kind of latch onto. So you must pick up quite a bit of that in your.
It's got to go in occasions, and then you recall the tone of a person's voice and use it in some. I mean, I don't want I think writers' lives shouldn't be entirely about stealing things and putting them on the page, but but obviously we do need a bit of help. It can't all just be self-generated. So I mean, with a novel, I don't know. I started as a novel. I wrote 2 very, very average novels, but I think with a novel, it feels like you need to be more in the zone. Whereas if you're writing dialogue, hearing dialogue should feed the.
It's the hardest bit. I've definitely found. I mean, with novels, I kind of get quite grumpy about needing to be quite quiet and not to be distracted. I do find a distraction does sort of jolt me out of it too much. And then scripts, which I've tried to do, I find the hardest part is working out what the beats of the script are. Once that's done, the dialogue, as you say, you know, that's kind of easier. And yes, you can do that with distraction. You almost want to see the tones of voice and the kind of quick repartee between someone, or, you know, and watching other things as well. How do you find? I find it quite difficult to read certain kinds of novels when I'm finishing my novel.
Well, I don't know what the reason is, but I gather this is common with a lot of people in lockdown. I've just lost the art of reading, and I now I can read, you know, so I'm not very good at nourishing my creativity by reading things anymore, or even sort of reading, you know, scripts or anything. So I also I do like to put some visual elements into everything I do. So but you know, I do get stuck, and also I do go out into the world now. So I've got a production company, as you mentioned, share a production company. So which is a kind of way of opening the, you know, the box of one's mind a bit by hearing other writers' work and reading things. And although potentially you can either be distracted by somebody being very good, or or if somebody's not very good, maybe you think, oh, this is polluting my polluting. You know,
but I find I pick quite specifically medium range writers.
Yeah.
If I start reading something too good, Simon, I started trying to read a Graham Greene book the other day, but, you know, I was trying to finish a novel, and I don't know, I can't read this. It just makes me feel too hopeless about what I'm doing. But there's a certain kind of mid-range that makes you think, well, I could maybe reach for that.
I could take this guy. No,
exactly.
No, it's no, I do. Inspiration is, you know, important, and you know, learning from the best, but it has to be sort of carefully done, I think. Otherwise,
so what did you watch in lockdown? What got you through?
Well, rather, this will nail me as a complete lowbrow, but I've been really enjoying Superstore, a Netflix show.
Superstore,
half hour. You know, I do have my more highbrow moments as well, but it's that kind of, you know, everybody should have a comfort view. And, you know, for a while, many years, it was Friends for lots of us, and, you know, and other things. But I find, although, you know, again, to talk commercially, the money, insofar as it's important, is in drama these days rather than in hour-long shows, or, you know, longer than 40, whatever. So we are encouraged to, as a company at least, and to do longer form things, because, and it's odd how that's changed. When I started writing in the 90s, there was, you know, it was all about half hours, you know, and NBC would have 4 half hours, and I mean, all of them would have 4 sitcoms essentially between 8 and 10. And that's all gone now, and maybe that's, well, obviously that was too many, and I think now there's a better balance, but we're all slaves to drama these days.
So it's all about the kind of the 60-minute format now, is it? I mean,
and then Netflix again muddied that, all the streamers have muddied that water by not really caring so much how long a show is, obviously, but which is good, because then some things are made to be 40 minutes, and an hour is really quite long for a lot of especially the lighter end of the TV market. I think you don't want to watch an hour of comedy, really, unless it's a comedy movie.
What got you going in comedy writing in the first place? That's probably the most challenging of.
I think it's certainly not because I'm hilarious. It's because I am. I think it's partly because it's an immediate response. You know you're doing, or at least in by your own sort of lights, you know you're doing okay if something makes you laugh during the day. I've always had trouble imagining a response to pure drama, you know, without. So and it's probably why I wasn't a very good novelist, because I wasn't as intensely in the moment in the writing, and it's because I think you just got to trust yourself more when you're a novelist. I don't know if you agree, but I think in TV you're always anticipating an audience. You're always sort of anticipating what I try not to do this, but you always think, I'm on that channel and therefore I'm writing for that audience. So you're always too aware, actually, I think, probably, of your end user, and you really need to. I love the idea of just writing for oneself and for one's, you know. But that's an idea.
I find with scripts, there is, like you say, there is that much closer relationship in terms of the response. But don't you also think, people talk about script writing being more collaborative? I talk about script writing being more collaborative, and how I would like that sometimes, because I'm sitting by myself. But then I sometimes wonder if it isn't just more people telling you what's wrong with it, and then leaving you alone to solve the problem. You know, the kind of
I think, I mean, on a bad day,
still quite singular.
It's true. I would agree with that. On a bad day, you think, just stop telling me things. And I, I mean, or do you think? And I'm not no complaint about my writing career, but I just think just once, could I get the response? No notes.
Which is perfect.
It's fine. It's good. I don't even need the word perfect. Just it's great to move forward.
We'll just go.
But that's true. I suppose in all forms of endeavor. You're although I can immediately think of things where people actually do let you do your own thing, but it's certainly in there's an increasing number of people at all levels telling you what's not working.
How do you find that? I mean, how do you filter?
Well, I decided at some point, because I don't like confrontation, and because I'm to be obedient basically with notes. So if I'm given a note and it's something I really, really don't, and it did make me sound a bit unprincipled, but I think in the end, if it's a note from a sort of producer, you just think that it's going to rankle with them if you don't at least try and address their note, and if you don't do it at this draft, then it's going to get you further down the line. So I do tend to try and at least find some common ground. I may not agree with the note, but if they feel something's wrong, then I will find a third way. And and that's fine, but it's hard to know, because you think of all God forbid, I'm not comparing myself to Shakespeare, but I imagine he was thought twice before changing. If you got any notes at all, maybe that's a lesson for don't necessarily assume that anybody knows the answer, but give it a go. I haven't got the confidence to think, well, I'm not going to change the thing because it just works.
I mean, you do now work on the production side of things. I mean, you're an exec, you exec produce most of the things that you write now. So does that make you very conscious of things like budget and casting constraints and all that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, again, the cynical thing to say is that this whole executive producer title is an agent scam to give you more money, and I'm not complaining. It's as much, it means what you want it to mean. And I do try and take it seriously. I do, so I was on set yesterday because it felt like everybody else is working 14-hour days, so the least I can do is go down for 3 hours and have lunch in the sun and show my face. But it can be that. I'm certainly not the kind of writer who wants to stay on set. Some writers do all day. They're there in case anything sort of slips. I think you got to give people their due. You got to let the director do his thing. You got to let the costume do the costumes. But it is good that, and with actors as well, being made executive producer more. We're behind America, who's been doing it for longer, but involve people so they don't feel they're just going to do their one thing, and then.
So you don't worry too much about getting very involved in casting, say, or
casting is one thing actually I do get involved in. It's more of a veto. I think writers should, if they should have the right to say, no, I think they're just not getting it and they're not right. And it's, in a way, it's simpler now, because it used to be you'd sit in a room and actors would come in and it was great, but you spend a lot of time chit-chatting and making them feel, again, in Britain, I think in America, they say next very quickly if they don't like it. And maybe they're just being more honest, because we have, so we're saving a bit more time now by doing it all, even before this pandemic, doing it on a screen. But then I think that's a really useful, time well spent. But I don't really want to be out there choosing the hair. It's a waste of, I don't know.
That's all right. That's best left to the experts. So tell me about your, how much time in the day do you actually spend writing? So this is about, the title of this is Staring Down the Blank Page. Which do you prefer to face, the blank page or the page full of writing that needs editing?
Well, I started as a translator, so I love translating. Actually, I felt it wasn't in the end quite creative enough, but I love the fact that even if it was, I worked for Swiss Bank for a while, even if it was a financial, speech, not the most interesting piece of prose you could say, but it was always, I love the fact it arrived and you could sort of, I turn it into English, and obviously you don't have that.
Are you translating from?
Sorry, French and German, bit of Italian, if I was feeling brave. But they and I sort of enjoyed it, but it's a halfway house on the road on the way to it's a midpoint on the way to creativity. So I proper creativity. So I was happy to lose that. Move on. But I did like that. But I mean, now the equivalent for me, it is a blank page, but I do like getting ideas from. If anybody's got any good ideas, do share afterwards. I like working on your adapting your fantastic books. It's just lovely to have something that's there to feed on and to leech off, if you like. So an equivalent, I'm always happier with, I shouldn't be, because this is, but I like other people bring me ideas. I like producers bring me ideas, and I sort of inherently trust them more than my own ideas, which you sort of want the energy that comes from somebody bringing you something. Even if they're actually quite a small idea, but I just like the idea that somebody else sort of kicks the ball off and I'm running with it.
Do you get, I mean, presumably in your position now, you probably get asked to fulfill a certain brief, you're in conversation with commissioners at networks and so on, so they will say, what we want is a drama on a Thursday night, or something like that.
And they say we're looking for family drama, we're looking for workplace. The trouble is, as soon as that advice goes out, that it's been given to
everyone,
the production community, and it's almost worthless because you want to just surprise them by giving them precisely what they have asked not to have. I mean, that's a risky strategy, obviously, but there's an element of, or just do what you want to do. What you feel you will write well, or produce well, or, act well. So, but we do get briefs. Yeah. I mean, the BBC, for example, is a very different, they're very rightly, hung up on diversity at the moment. So they really want to, it would, put it this way, it'd be very unwise to go in with a very traditional, slow moving drama. You got to be a little bit, and although it's their remit to do a range of things, you have to at least move a little bit with
what about, how has the relationship changed with the commissioners in 30 years? The story I get told now is that 30 years ago you could have lunch with the commissioner at BBC, and after a few glasses you'd scribble something on the back of the napkin. I think this sounds like this could be a great hit. And he'd go, let's go for it. And now you get sent 40-page pitch documents by Netflix telling you exactly how they want characters presented and how they want things to turn out.
Well, I'd rather there was less competition, but even back then, when I was when I was 20 years ago, I was thinking that the old kind of gentleman's club way, that's no way to run a TV industry. I mean, apart from the fact it was very, clubby. And I mean, in lots of ways, there were obviously good things came out of that system. The energy was focused on the project itself rather than getting commissioned. And you can, spend a lot of time, and there's a lot of glossy, documents going around for pitch commissions to I think we probably did one, because that maybe that's the minimum that you need. But it also it's a lot of vacuous pitching of which is all about gloss and marketing rather than actually, are you going to really actually manage to produce a good program at the end of it?
Do you think that's just because the television has got so much bigger? I mean, unexpectedly in the last few years, television has really become the place for great drama. A lot of big actors who before would never have considered doing TV and now doing these big TV. It means you're dealing with cinema budget. There's much more at stake. You're not doing 25 grand an episode. You're doing £1 million an episode, and so
there's a lot of money to lose.
Take risks.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to lose if you get it wrong. But equally, I mean, I in a way, I'd rather, as with movies, I'd rather the budgets were a bit smaller and you could, and we're all a bit less tense about failure. But it seems that that's not, I mean, Netflix has distorted not to blame them, but particularly Netflix and HBO a bit before them, have distorted the British market in that we're all aware of how good it's got to look if you want to have any success on a global, I mean, I think so, although, because there's always a room for a smaller show, a boutique experience. I'm
interested because when you took, somebody said to me that they were talking to someone very high up at ITV about BritBox, which is the kind of the ITV version of Netflix with BBC, and they said the biggest show on that was Midsummer Murders. Just kind of very formulaic, very predictable, pretty low budget, really.
It's true.
But just complete comfort viewing, and that's and
2 hours long as well.
To be hugely challenged, and I find that quite a lot at the end of the day, particularly in the last year. I've wanted to watch things like Schitt's Creek, which is brilliant television,
Yeah.
but also very nice, very easy and heartwarming. And I've found it a bit harder to get through
Yeah, I agree.
kind of the really major dramas and so on.
Well, that's Superstore. Not to give it, they don't need my plug. It's stopped now. 5-6 series is similar as to Schitt's Creek in that sense that it's completely intelligent, bristling with intelligence, but it is easy viewing. I mean, I love Succession, and I mean, who doesn't? And I love. But my heart lies more with the kind of the mid range, the Call My Agent level, where it seems to be where the program isn't weighted down with budget or I mean, I love The Crown as well, but it feels like every time I watch it, I can only, my thoughts are dominated by how much that scene cost. Oh, look at all those pictures.
It's a bit of a distraction, doesn't it?
It is a bit, maybe that's a problem we can all cope with, but I did, it's slightly the infrastructure of the actual show is the main event rather than the actual the relationships and the I don't know why I'm pushing up because it's great. That's still a brilliant piece of television.
So we've got a couple of questions coming in. I'd love any questions from anyone. My dad's got a quick one, which I'm going to ask on his behalf, seeing as he's in black and white. He's wondering, do you start with writing by hand or do you go straight to computer on a new project?
When I started, because I've been doing this, since the late 80s, and I wrote in pencil, actually, my first 2 novels.
They did have pens in the 80s, I'd like to point out to anyone.
They did have pens. I'd sharpen the quill, kill the turkey, sharpen the... No, I would, and in a way that was, maybe I'll go back to it, because actually, and then I would type it up. But that, I mean, obviously, like lots of people, I can barely write now with handwrite. Maybe it's time for us to get back to craftsmanship of that kind and the content. But I do love but having remembered that it is, I do love a keyboard. I'm massaging my laptop. I feel a lot of love for my MacBook.
I find I have to write on the computer because it's the only thing typing keeps up speed with my thoughts, where my handwriting is too slow. But I do like handwriting for character backstory when I'm trying to think through a person, stuff that doesn't make it through to the novel or the script, but just spooling ideas out, which is sort of slower.
And I think because it would be, because also I think we're all finding, Christmas comes around and even I write a few cards and it's really hard to physically to remember how to do the words.
I know.
So there's actually also I went through a phase of buying pens, but actually proper, love gorgeous 30s fountain pens. And
yes, everyone goes through that kind of phase.
Yeah, you're right, especially writing. That's what I'm allowed to do. And when eBay came out, I think, well, I can spend a couple of hours here buying pens I'll never use from all around the world.
Stationery. So I'm going to bring Rosalind in, who's listening. Hang on. And
hello.
Question. Hi, Rosalind. Lovely.
Hi, everyone. So I'm always in awe of people who can write creatively. So I've got loads of questions.
Oh, you're very kind.
And I think a couple of them is, I understand that you have to explore and sort of try new ideas. But do you ever get the feeling that that's just such a bad idea, I'm just going to throw that away, or can you build on something? That's my first question.
Can you veer? I think you can. I don't know about you, Jessica, but I think you can veer off. There aren't many things that I've really, not least because I've been lucky enough to be paid for things. So just the sheer greed or family, necessity keeps me going. But it's I think you owe yourself to finish whatever unless it's a novel and you're only 20 pages in, to finish it, because it's only at the end that your real feelings for the piece of work and the characters. But even as I'm saying that, I feel like if you are right, I feel I'm condemning you to some unhappy months, and you might,
I only write articles. I've never read anything longer than that. And I was laughing when you were talking about writing, financial things. I write a lot of financial articles because I'm kind of interested in economics and that kind of stuff. Right. And I try and make it relevant and try and make it interesting. And I like humor, and I think it's all right, to have humor in those kinds of subjects.
It is. Although you try getting humor into the Credit Suisse annual report, that was
I worked for a Swiss bank, so I was really laughing when you said that. So I knew exactly what you.
Since I left them in 1989, they've just gone way downhill.
I was going to ask you which bank, but I didn't want to put you on the spot necessarily.
I think it's long ago now for this.
Okay. So then the other question I had was, do you write the theme as an outline first, or I mean, how do you go about it?
I don't really. I mean, I do an outline. I do if it's, I mean, I do quite a lot of pitches. So, which would be, a page. I suppose I do a page of theme. This is before I'm going to write the script. Obviously, page of theme and a page of characters. A first episode, future stories. So that would be a kind of classic 4-page.
Oh, okay.
But but it depends on what it is. But I think not least because commissioners have a short attention span and they won't read too much. So I do try and keep it punchy, but not. You want it to. I mean, in a way, polish is the enemy, because you don't want everything to be too slick, because you want to just give the impression of interest, passion in the project, and most importantly, I think fullness. Is it something that's got depth and legs and and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Rosalind. Good questions. It's interesting, that thing of the theme. I mean, I always think I sort of loathe having to do great long synopses and everything, just because I'm so wary of boring myself with a story. It's just that kind of crucial piece of advice that you're given at the beginning is don't tell people your novel idea before you started writing it, because
unless people are going to give you good input. But generally, I agree.
I don't mind discussing a particular plot point that I'm having trouble with. That can be really useful, or what can I do with this character? I need her to be this, that, and the other. I have 2 or 3 people that I will do that with. That's incredibly useful. But I think if you try to I don't know if you've ever, I mean, if you listen to someone trying to tell you the plot of an entire novel, it's
a bit
really hard to keep up anyway, it's not something
I think, and it slightly does curse it. I mean, there are sharers and there are non-sharers, and I was always a non-sharer until the work is finished, and I'm not saying that's the answer, because I love the idea that it's a kind of community of of expression, and we share scripts with people that you trust.
I have found writers generally to be very encouraging and supportive.
I must know your writer friends then, because I agree. I mean, there's a I think they are. I think you're right.
On the whole, we're all having to solve very different problems. So, I'm not talking about.
I think you're right, unless it's somebody who I know actors. Some actors always say, well, it's got X's fingerprints over, because they're always kind of second in line so they got more reason to be angry.
That was the last question I was going to ask. Actually, I was quite interested in whether, do you mind when actors change the words of a script?
Actually, it happened yesterday. There was a bit of a question, and sometimes you get somebody like a script supervisor or the director who's very respectful, and they come to you and say, "Do you mind saying this adjective rather than the other?" Because the actor thinks it flows well. And then you find the next day and you think, "Oh, that's nice, they're taking it seriously." And then you find the next day they've actually changed the whole paragraph the next day. I mean, I find it particularly, and generally I'm very happy with it, and people are respectful. But I do find, especially with a joke, it is often, I don't want to be pretentious, but it is often quite a nuance, and you do work on the right word, and then you find it's been slightly trashed. But but it's hard enough acting with, and you see, I've been watching sort of the rushes for things, and you see the panic in their eyes, and they, what do I say now? So it's often, it's not disrespect, it's incompetence, if you like. It's that it's hard to act, actually, because it's a wordy speech.
Exactly. Oh, well, that's brilliant. Well, thank you very much. It's 5:30. I'm gonna let you go and have
thank you for giving the time to
last cold wine in your basement or whatever it is.
Yes.
Enjoy this nice summer's evening.
I'll go out to the light.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you for listening as well.
Soon work with you again, and thank you very much to everybody else who joined in. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.